What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so it was kind of a slow news day, and I'm not going to continue covering the Abrego Garcia nonsense that is still ongoing. The Maryland Man hoax, as it is being called, is pretty much over as far as I'm concerned, and I know I've already said that, and Democrats keep on, beating the dead horse, if you will, for whatever reason. Like, I'm not even sure why, because it's so apparent that it's a lie at this point, that they are lying about this guy. They're on the losing end of that one, folks. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I've got another story for you guys that, it's not really all that great government newsworthy or whatever, but you might be surprised where I land on this one. We'll put it that way. Check this out, y'all. 60 Minutes producer leaves show citing a loss of journalistic independence. Holy crap. So there we go. The producer of 60 Minutes decides I can't do this job unbiasedly anymore. So I'm going to quit. I've lost my journalistic independence. My guy, that has happened a long time ago. All of you people in the corporate press have lost it a long time ago. You've stopped being independent, my friends. My friends. Let's get into it, though. The top producer at CBS 60 Minutes announced Tuesday that he would step down from the news magazine because he had lost his journalistic independence. Over the past months, it has become clear that I would not be allowed to run the show as I have always run it, Bill Owens said in a memo to staff members, which was obtained by NBC News. To make independent decisions based on what was right for 60 Minutes, right for the audience. So having defended this show and what we stand for from every angle over time with everything I could, I am stepping aside so the show can move forward, Owens added. Owens' departure comes during a tumultuous chapter for 60 Minutes. President Donald Trump has sued CBS for $10 billion over an October interview with the then Vice President Kamala Harris that the president claims was deceptively edited. The network has denied the claim. Now, that's where we get into it, folks, and this is where you might be surprised. Now, I can say it was deceptively edited, but the intent, the purpose behind that, I'm not so sure, right? Because the way they did it, they took an answer and broke it up into two sections, right? And then they aired one answer with the question for one airing of like the full interview. And then they had a short interview, a short clip that they showed on a different show. They aired a totally different section of that same answer. Fascinating. Now, I wonder why would they do that? Now, that's why I believe it was deceptively edited, right? So, once again, why would they air two different answers, essentially? It was all one long answer, which they, as a matter of fact, between the two answers that we got, they still cut out, like, I don't know how many words it was, but probably about a minute of fluff. So we still didn't get the entire answer, as a matter of fact, but the reason it was deceptively edited is because they may claim it was for time or whatever, but if you're just cutting it down for time, you're just going to air one answer and maybe cut off some of it and still air that same answer. You're not going to air two different sections, two different segments of the same answer. That doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that? Like, this is what I'm getting at, is because, Donald Trump believes that they did it to help Kamala Harris win the election. It was election interference, for crying out loud. Now, I'm not so sure about that, because the simple fact that none of that answer made any sense. Neither answer on each clip helped Kamala Harris in the least. Not in the least. Like, none of it did. So, I mean, were they really doing it to try to influence the election? Were they doing it? I mean, what was the reason behind that? To make her look even more dumb? Like, nothing about it made, either answer made her look any smarter. They were both ridiculously garbled nonsense, essentially. So I don't understand, like, the motivation behind saying that, oh, they did it to help her win the... No, I don't think so. I mean, if they did, I can't say for sure, but if they did, it didn't work. We'll put it that way. And anybody with a brain, anybody with a decent IQ could look at those answers and say, they're pretty much the same answer. They're a bunch of garbled nonsense. Bunch of word salad garbage. That's all it was. None of it made any sense whatsoever. Of course, that's par for the course with Kamala Harris and her answers. Trump amended the lawsuit earlier this year, upping his damages claim to $20 billion. That's an absurd number. Former President Donald Trump's repeated claims against 60 Minutes are false, CBS News said in a statement in October. Once again, it's hard to say. The interview was not doctored, and the show did not hide any part of Vice President Kamala Harris's answer to the question at issue. Yes, they did. Once again, like I said, there was about a minute worth of fluff that they just did not air at all. Because when we got the full thing, we got the full tape. Yeah, we saw they edited a lot. It was heavily edited. They edited out about 15 minutes of a 20-minute freaking... Yeah, they edited a lot of it out. A whole lot of it out. And once again, like I said, those two answers of the segment in question, none of it made sense anyway. And why would you air two different segments of the same answer? That's funny, right? Normally when they do that, if you're cutting it for time, in other words, wouldn't it make more sense to cut, take whatever answer it is and just cut some of that and air both, this section essentially, and then, maybe this much of this section instead of airing this section and then this section over here. I mean, wouldn't that make more sense, y'all? Then it doesn't look like you're deceptively editing anything. Then you can honestly, genuinely get across saying, hey, look, we edited it for time. We cut down that answer. Because then you have the two same answers on the two different interviews. I'm just saying, that's what I would have done if I was trying to cut for time. But, hey, it is what it is. In a separate statement, 60 Minutes said it gave an excerpt from its interview with Harris to the Sunday morning program Face the Nation, which used a longer section of the former Democratic presidential candidate's answer to a question. Now, that's deceptive right there because, like I said, well, let's keep going. Same question, same answer, but a different portion of the response. When we edit any interview, whether a politician, an athlete, or movie star, we strive to be clear, accurate, and on point, the statement said. The portion of her answer on 60 Minutes was more succinct, which allows time for other subjects in a wide-ranging 21-minute long segment. Now, that statement outright is a lie. Now, if you understand exactly how I broke this down earlier, the reason why I say that is because they said the portion of her answer on 60 Minutes was more succinct. No, I'm sorry. It was a completely different section of the answer. Like I said, she gives a 2-minute answer. We'll just go with that hypothetical number, right? A 2-minute answer. Right? So the 60 Minutes portion, they aired, say, the first 45 seconds. And then the other, Face the Nation, they aired, the last 15 seconds. Two totally different parts of the same answer. But because they derived all of the content from the exact same answer, leaving out, like I said, probably about a minute's worth of that answer. What do you glean from that other than deceptive editing? I'm just saying, let me know down in the comments if I'm way off base on this, but I really don't think so. I've thought about this. Thought about it a lot. I covered this when it came out. And I was kind of on the side with Trump. Yeah, they're trying to interfere in the election, blah, 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 blah. But once again, once the full tape came out, I watched the entire thing. I noticed that none of this answer made any sense whatsoever. They cut out fluff, essentially. That I get. The section that they left out was fluff. All of it was word salad nonsense. But it's like none of it actually helped Kamala Harris. And the editors, these people, are not that stupid. They had to know that none of this is going to help her campaign at all. So to say that they did it to help her win the election, I mean, you can believe that if you want, Trump, but I just don't buy it. I think, personally, if you ask me, that 60 Minutes interview helped Donald Trump a lot more than it helped Kamala Harris. Now, if you want to sue them and say that they did that, election interference on behalf of Donald Trump, sure, but why are you suing them for that? You should be thanking them, Trump. As a matter of fact, he should be thanking them. But he's suing them for some reason. But it goes, I understand, I get it. Look, we don't need the corporate press media deceptively editing these things, right? But what we want from the corporate press, and this is the point I think Trump is getting at here. It's not that they interfered in the election. That's the underlying cause or whatever, but it's the fact that he's trying to put the corporate press on notice. Stop manipulating the American people. That's basically the message from this. Or you're going to get sued into oblivion if you keep continually doing this nonsense. Stop manipulating everybody. We'll come after you. If he's got to threaten them with criminal charges or civil charges, whatever it may be, revoking their license, like from the FCC or whatever you have to do to straighten them out, to get their independent journalistic morals back, if you will. Do what you got to do. That's what I say. But, that's just me. I'm not the president of the United States. Trump has repeatedly lambasted the Vulnerable news magazine over its reporting on him and his administration. Once again, folks, I'm going to read that one more time, a little bit slowly. Trump has repeatedly lambasted the Vulnerable news magazine. Are you kidding me here? And NBC claims to be unbiased. They haven't lost their journalistic independence. They have never lost their journalistic integrity, for crying out loud. They've always been biased. That is right. Vulnerable, really? NBC or CBS as vulnerable? I mean, in that vein, sure, everything is vulnerable. The federal government is vulnerable, for crying out loud. BlackRock is vulnerable. China is... It's like, what? Oh my goodness, y'all. These people are insane. In a post on Truth Social on April 13th, for example, Trump wrote, "Almost every week, 60 Minutes mentions the name Trump in a derogatory and defamatory way. But this weekend's broadcast tops them all. He appeared to take issue with segments about the war in Ukraine and his interest in acquiring Greenland. Trump added that he believes CBS should lose its broadcast license and pay a big price. He said he hoped Federal Communications Commissioner Chairman Brendan Carr would impose the maximum fines and punishment. Owens' exit, first reported by the New York Times, also comes at a pivotal moment for CBS's parent company, Paramount. Shari Redstone, Paramount's controlling shareholder, reportedly needs the Trump administration to approve her media conglomerate's sale to Skydance Media, a production and finance company run by David Ellison. Yeah, the son of tech mogul Larry Ellison. The New York Times reported in late January that Paramount was in settlement talks with Trump. The Times later reported that Owens told staff members he would not apologize for the Harris interview as part of any prospective settlement. NBC News has not independently verified either report. In his memo to staff, Owens said 60 Minutes would continue to cover the new administration, as we will report on future administrations. We will report from war zones, investigate injustices, and educate our audience. In short, 60 Minutes will do what it has done for 57 years. Thank you all. Thank you all. Remain focused on the moment. Our audience deserves it, Owens said in closing. Wendy McMahon, president and CEO of CBS News, notified company employees by email that Owen would be leaving and touted his work at the company. Tom and I are committed to 60 Minutes and ensuring that the mission and the work remain our priority, McMahon said, referring to CBS News president and executive editor Tom Chabrowski. I guess that's how you pronounce that, Chabrowski. Chabroni, whatever it may be. But I just find all this fascinating. Look, a lot of people get mad at Trump for going after places like CBS. And I think, like I said, he's kind of going after them for the wrong reason. But they need to be put on notice. He needs to go after them somehow. And how can you go after somebody, right? We have freedom of speech. They most certainly have the right to lie and manipulate everybody if they want to. Like, once again, I don't know why they would want to. Don't know why they do. But I like the idea of trying to force them back to independent journalistic integrity, right? Like, we need some unbiased fact reporting in this country. We need more of it, folks. We don't have enough of it. You know, it's not incumbent upon me to get out here and just be completely unbiased. I mean, sure, I could, you know, but if anybody tells you that they're unbiased, that's a lie. They can be pretty close to unbiased in their reporting, right? But they're never going to be unbiased people. So a lot of times, a lot of that's going to come from a place of bias. But what you do is you got to know about your biases and work around that. Try to not let your biases get in the way of fact bringing, right? And this is what I think. This is my personal opinion. What they try to do is, you know, these news programs and all this stuff, it's all driven by ads, ad dollars. It's all of it. It's driven by ad dollars for the most part. All right? I mean, you do get fees from being on cable TV, but, you know, that's minimal. Most of their revenue is driven by ad dollars. And if people to stay engaged, they need to be entertained. And I think, you know, after so long, because if you go back and look at old school news reporting, it was very bland and boring. It's not that these days, folks. It is not even close. So I think over a long stretch of time, these journalists used to be pretty fair, right? You never had completely unbiased news, but it was pretty close, right? But, you know, these days it's just gotten so out of hand. It's like, you know, something you've just allowed to fester for so long. Like, you know, you get a boil or something, and, you know, one day you wake up and you're like, dadgum, this thing is the size of my kneecap right here on my thigh or something like that. And you're like, I got to go to a doctor. Maybe I should have done this years ago, right? That's kind of where we're at right now. So they need to be put back into alignment with reality, at least. Sure, be as biased as you want, but at least be factual with your reporting. If you can do that, like, report the facts, and then go into whatever tirade you want to go into about, right? That's what I say, at least. But, you know, what can you do? That we've got freedom of speech. And they use freedom of speech to bludgeon journalistic integrity over the head with constantly. Oh, we can lie if we want to. Yeah, you can, but don't know why you would want to. You lose all credibility, for crying out loud, which the corporate news these days have lost pretty much all credibility. I mean, they tell a story, I immediately go and fact check every single thing, every single aspect to that story. You have to, because they lie so much, but it's crazy, y'all. And it's crazy, and they never apologize. If they were to come out and say, oh, I'm sorry, we lied about the Maryland man hoax, right? We didn't know that they had all this evidence, which would be a lie, but even still, if they come out and apologize and said, okay, so it does appear he's an alleged MS-13 gang member, and it does appear that, you know, the Biden administration, a Biden holdover, lied in court. If they would say these things, I wouldn't have that much of a problem. As a matter of fact, I would not be on YouTube right now if they come out and admitted their faults, admitted their biases, and came out and at least gave you the truth. But they don't do that, folks. And that's the aggravating part, because then where do you get all the facts from? Right? People aren't going to go out and fact check all this. They're just, a lot of people, they don't care all that much. Maybe they want the news, so they go and read a news article, and then they get that news, and then they think what they read in that article is reality. And I argue with people all the time in the comment section that are just so uninformed, or they're misinformed by these people, and it blows my mind that they have no thought process, that they think that what they say, that what the corporate press has told them is reality, and that is how it is. And then when I tell them something, they call me a liar. Like, go look it up, for crying out loud. These people, they're insane. But I think that's all I got on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Y'all don't forget to do me that favor and smash that like button. I would greatly appreciate that if you could do that. That would be just great, like I said. But y'all subscribe if you're new around here. That would also be lovely if y'all could do that. And share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And y'all try to have a good day. stay logical. Peace.